Hello everyone, welcome to Silver Bay YMCA. My name is Garth Allen. I am the Spiritual Life Director here. We are filming today in the Inn lobby by our fireplace. This is one of the iconic locations here at Silver Bay, and we're located in the Adirondacks on Lake George for those of you around New York and other places, I guess, that may not be familiar with it. So that's where we're from. I'd like to thank Kyle and Rob from the New York Alliance for asking us to do these videos on self-care during this COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm grateful to be here with my colleague Bruce and our videographer Austin. And we're grateful to be able to share these talks with you. We pray that they are beneficial for you. Today, I'd like to focus our attention on how we as YMCA professionals can live out the mission statement of the Y in the midst of this pandemic. So YUSA has a mission statement, and we try to incorporate that into how we work. But now that many of us, our work styles have changed, at least many work schedules have changed, some have been furloughed. But what does it mean to live out the mission of YUSA during this time? So I want to talk about that and give some hopefully practical applications. So just as a reminder, YUSA's mission statement is this: to put Christian principles into practice through programs that build healthy spirit, mind, body for all. Let me just say that one more time. To put Christian principles into practice through programs that build healthy spirit, mind, body for all. So we're going to unpack that in a moment. I just want to give a little background in case this is one of your first times viewing one of these videos. As you know, the YMCA is a unique movement. It's a diverse and inclusive movement. We seek to welcome everyone to our campuses. We want people of all nationalities, of all ethnicities, faith backgrounds, sexual orientations, cultural differences. We want to welcome everyone, and that's part of who we are as the YMCA. There's room for everyone here. No one gets left out, and no one gets left behind. It's one of our core values, is this diversity and inclusivity. And secondly, the YMCA has its birthplace in a specific context. That's the Christian faith, right? YMCA. The C stands for Christian. So we want to acknowledge that, and I particularly do because my training is in pastoral ministry and in the history of Christianity. So I bring my Christian faith with me as I do these talks. And so I'll be referencing the scriptures and Christian themes, and I hope that whether you're Christian or not, you can find something of value here, that you can recognize that Christianity and the Bible have been influential throughout Western civilization, whether or not you adhere to the Christian faith specifically, that there is value in what we have to say here. So hopefully you'll be able to glean or gain something from that. So let's return to our topic. How do we as YMCA professionals live out the mission of YUSA in the midst of this pandemic with the coronavirus? So I've broken down the mission statement into 7 essential elements. They are these. Number 1, Christian principles. Number 2, I'm going to talk about practices that build. The mission statement says programs, but as we're talking about us as individuals, I'm going to look at practices that we can do to build. And then 3rd is healthy. What does that mean, to be healthy? And then in spirit, mind, body. And then for all. What does it mean to be living in such a way that we're living for all? So let's take a look at each of these. So Christian principles. I would define this as those ideals and concepts that flow from the life and teachings of Jesus Christ as found in the Holy Scriptures. Those ideals and concepts that flow from the life and teachings of Jesus Christ as found in the Scriptures. Now that being said, different Christians, different denominations have interpreted the Scriptures very differently depending on your denominational background, your cultural milieu, wherever you've come from. That colors how you interpret things. So how I may interpret these may not be how you interpret these things. So any interpretation or projection of Christian principles must be said with humility and must allow room for differences of opinion. So I just want to come from that place when I talk about Christian principles, that these are my thoughts. I'm trying to be humble about them. You don't have to, swallow them hook, line, and sinker. I hope you'll give them your consideration. And there's room for difference of opinion on these things. So I will base some of my practical suggestions on my own interpretations of Scripture. And I hope these will be beneficial to you. So that's the first one, Christian principles. So the second is practices that build. Now, practices are habits and routines that help us order our lives. Practices and routines that help us order our lives. Now, many of our habits and routines are formed simply by just the path of least resistance, or it's just the way we've always done it. It may be formed by the ways we've experienced stress or anxiety, and our habits and routines form around these things. But notice, not all of our habits, not all of our routines actually build our lives. Some practices actually malform us. They disrupt our lives. And so I want to specifically focus on those practices that make us better people, practices that create wholeness, that increase our coping skills, and that help us to fulfill all of our roles to the very best of our abilities. And when I mean roles as a worker, maybe a husband or wife, a father or mother, a brother or sister, friend. We all occupy these various roles. And how do the practices that we incorporate into our lives help us to become the best at those roles that we can possibly be? So in these uncertain times, it's great to have practices that ground us, that make us stronger, that keep us in touch with who we want to be as our truest selves. The thirdly is healthy. I think we will all work at the Y, but healthy are those things that reflect a sense of comprehensive and holistic well-being. Comprehensive and holistic well-being, that's how I would define health. Simply stated, these things healthy things promote this overall sense of well-being, and unhealthy things are those that work against us having this sense of peace or well-being. So that's the third thing. Fourthly, spirit. The spirit is that part of us which is drawn to explore the divine or the transcendent in our world and beyond. Our spirit engages the realm of the holy, the sacred, engages thoughts about God and religious experience. So that's how I would define the spirit. And if we fail to engage our spirit, then we're neglecting an essential part of who we are. And this inhibits our ability to become whole, complete people. And so I would want us to encourage us to think about how can we engage our spirits. Next, we're going to talk about the mind. The mind is that part of us that engages our intellect, that cultivates critical thinking. Our mind draws us into experience of lifelong learning. And our mind also includes the seat of our emotions and our feelings. And so there's this two-pronged sort of look at the mind. It's both our intellectual things that we think about and our feelings, the emotions that we deal with. So if we fail to engage our mind, then we're also neglecting an essential part of who we are, and this inhibits our ability to become whole, well-rounded people. Body, and most of us at the Y, we do this well. This refers to our physical form and our frame, right? We must provide healthy food and drink for our body. We must take care of ourselves. If we don't take care of our physical body, we will pass away. And that is not what we want. We want to take care of our body. And then lastly, for all. These last two words in the mission statement I think are so interesting. It reminds us of what we said earlier about diversity and about welcoming everyone. The YMCA movement really seeks to unite people from a variety of backgrounds. It's for all. And the human characteristics that we hold in common remind us how similar we are. It's our hope that these commonalities should draw us together and make us much stronger than those differences that may be used to divide us. So when we say for all, we're focusing on, okay, what unites us? What do we have in common? How can we capitalize on those things rather than the things that make us different or draw us apart? And during this pandemic, we've obviously seen, I know I've seen, how closely we are interconnected with each other. We're really interdependent. We have this illusion in our culture, in American culture, that we're independent, that we can do everything on our own. But we really need each other. So it's for all. So I want us to affirm that we are for all, and this is critically important as a guide for the way we are to attempt to live differently moving forward from the coronavirus. So based upon this exposition of the YMCA's mission statement, I'd like to encourage you with 4 practices, or 4 sort of sets of practices that you can live that you can use to live out this mission in your own lives. So to take sort of the YMCA's mission statement and incorporate it into your own life and make it your own personal mission. I'm going to be referencing the Bible throughout, and I'm going to be using quotations from the Message translation, which is a very readable and sort of earthy, up-to-date translation by Eugene Peterson, who is a noted scholar and has translated the Bible into this sort of very readable, up-to-date translation. So I'll be using that, and hopefully you'll hear the differences in that scripture. So let's talk about 4 practices that build. First, and we just touched on this, physical exercise. We all need to be doing physical exercise. The Apostle Paul had this young protege, Timothy, who was a pastor, and he wrote this. He said, "Workouts in the gymnasium are useful." So that's a modern translation, but that's in the Bible, which we don't usually think about those things. But Paul also wrote to his church at Corinth, and he said this. He's picturing the Olympics games, I think. "You've all been to the stadium and seen the athletes race. Everyone runs, but one wins. Run in order to win. All good athletes train hard. They do it for a gold medal that tarnishes and fades. You're after the one that's gold eternally. I don't know about you, but I'm running hard for the finish line. I'm giving it everything I've got. No sloppy living for me. I'm staying alert and in top condition. I'm not going to get caught napping, telling everyone else about it, and then missing out on it myself." So this picture of the Apostle Paul using physical exercise as something that's practical and beneficial to us as human beings. I know for me, since my YMCA is closed and our gymnasium is closed, it's very easy for me to slack off in my workouts. I make excuses. I don't have the right equipment. I don't have the time. I'm working from home. All these things. I'm too distracted maybe, but there's all these reasons not to exercise. But I want to encourage you that each of you should do something physical every day. Whether it's doing sit-ups and push-ups at home, whether it's joining an online yoga class, you should work up a sweat every day. And I'm saying this as much for my own benefit as I am for yours. If you can't do any of those things, go for a walk. Take a walk in your neighborhood, in a local park, obviously keeping distance from everyone and wearing masks if that's appropriate in your area. Take a bicycle ride. Find some form of exercise. It will give you a break from your racing thoughts, your anxious thoughts, your worries. It'll give you a feeling of freedom after being cooped up. A lot of us feel like we're trapped at home during this time. And so find a physical exercise as an outlet so that you can get out, get your body moving, and take care of yourself by physically exercising. So that's the first practice. Find a physical exercise that works for you. Second practice is to seek mental challenges. Seek mental challenges. Exercise your mind, actually. In the book of Job in the Old Testament, there's this quotation about mental exercise. It says this: "Put the question to our ancestors. Study what they learned from their ancestors. For we're newcomers at this with a lot to learn, and not too long to learn it. So why not let the ancients teach you, tell you what's what, instruct you in what they knew from experience? So in this passage, Job is talking about learning from history, learning from the experience of others. And for me, the way I look at this is the quotation should remind us that it's never too late to begin studying. It's never too late to learn something new. For some of us, it may mean actually finishing that degree. I know I have some family members that started college, started different degree programs, and never quite finished. This is a good time to get some online classes in and finish that degree that will challenge you mentally. For others, it may be seeking an advanced degree. Maybe you've always wanted to get into a master's program or a PhD program, and your life is turned upside down. So you can use this time to explore what's available to advance your education. For others, it may be simply trying to learn a new language so that after this is all over, you can travel to Italy and you have a little bit of Italian that you know so you can speak the language. Maybe for some of you, you've always wanted to try to learn an instrument, the guitar or the trumpet or the banjo or whatever it is that you've wanted to learn. Now you have the time to pick that up, and there's all sorts of lessons available on YouTube, and so you could use this time to pick up a musical instrument. For others, it may be reading something that isn't on a screen, right? It may mean picking up a novel or a biography or a work of history and reading from the printed page. I'm sort of old-fashioned when it comes to this. I love to have a book to hold in my hands, to turn the pages. It helps me to engage more deeply than reading and scrolling on a screen. I just want to tell you, it's okay to turn off your devices. You have my permission. You may not need my permission, but if you feel like you need somebody's, it's okay. Turn off your phone, turn off your tablet, your laptop, your computer, and just walk away from that stuff and engage your mind in something else. I believe that it will make a difference, that it will help you. So that's the second thing. Seek something that mentally challenges you. The third practice that builds is making time for emotional reflection. Making time for emotional reflection. The book of Proverbs in the Old Testament has all sorts of pithy sayings that have these truths that you can sort of read and hold on to. And this one I just think is great when we're in need of processing our emotions. Proverbs 19:20 says, "Take good counsel and accept correction. That's the way to live wisely and well." Take good counsel and accept correction. In this time of increased pressure, increased stress, we need to rely on others to help support us emotionally. This can be as simple as connecting with a friend via the telephone or via FaceTime or Zoom and sort of talking with someone, especially if you live alone, if you feel isolated, talking with someone will help. It could be that some of us are experiencing more deeper emotional challenges during this time. And we may be in need of a professional counselor who can assist us. And I believe there are opportunities for us to do some work on our emotional selves, to be in touch with what's going on internally at this time so that we can get some healing there and move forward as we come out of this pandemic. There's a myth, and I sort of touched on this before when we talked about, especially in American culture, that we can do everything on our own. We pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We don't really need the help of others. I'm here to tell you that's simply not true. We need each other. Now more than ever, we need each other to get through this crisis, to come out on the other side better and stronger people. So if you're having some emotional struggles during this time, I would just urge you to seek help and counsel if you need it. If you don't feel like you have anyone that you can talk to, please reach out to myself or Bruce Tamlin, our chaplain on the Silver Bay website. Our emails are there, and we would love to talk with you, to connect with you, to help if you feel like you need someone to do some emotional reflection with. So fourthly and lastly, a practice that builds is pursuing spiritual growth or spiritual renewal. The Apostle Paul, who I referenced earlier, had a church in Ephesus, and he wrote this following message to them concerning spiritual growth. Paul says this, "My response is to get down on my knees before the Father," he's speaking of God, this magnificent Father who parcels out all heaven and earth. I ask him to strengthen you by his Spirit, not a brute strength, but a glorious inner strength, that Christ will live in you as you open the door and invite him in. And I ask him that with both feet planted firmly on love, you'll be able to take in with all the followers of Jesus the extravagant dimensions of Christ's love. Reach out and experience the breadth. Test its length. Plumb the depths. Rise to the heights. Live full lives, full in the fullness of God. God can do anything, you know. He, and far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. God does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, his Spirit gently and deeply within us. I really love that quote from the Apostle Paul, and I do recognize that it's obviously a Christian approach to dealing with the spiritual dimension of our lives. But there are other spiritual approaches as well. So it doesn't necessarily matter what your faith background is. Most faiths allow for opportunities to pray. So take time to pray, to engage God with what you're dealing with. Allow yourself to communicate both by speaking to God and listening. Prayer is a two-way sort of conversation. It's not necessarily just a one-way making your requests known. Take time to read the scriptures or other holy literature. These books have been influential and powerful for a reason. They've spoken to people throughout the ages, so immerse yourself in some of the scriptures or holy literature. Maybe you want to take time to meditate. Some people feel very comfortable meditating. For others it's a challenge. For me personally, I've struggled with sort of sitting quietly and meditating. It was only when I discovered the prayer labyrinth. You can go online to find labyrinths, and there are these, we have one here at Silver Bay. It's a walking meditation, and you sort of follow the path, and as you're doing this physical thing, you hold something in your mind, whether it's you're worried and you want to let go of that. And so I would encourage you, there's a website called Labyrinth Finder, and you can find if there's one near you. And it can combine two of these things. You can get out for some exercise by walking, and you can be praying or meditating as you do the labyrinth. And that's just one thing. It's a suggestion that I've found super helpful, but it may be helpful for you as well. So I want to encourage you to find some spiritual or religious practice that helps you to engage during this time. So let me review these 4 practices. One is getting physical exercise. Most of us at the Y, we understand the need and the importance for that. Secondly, challenge yourself mentally. Do something with your mind to keep it nimble and agile and growing. We want to be lifelong learners. Do some emotional reflection. Take stock of what you're feeling. I know during this time my emotions have been right beneath the surface. And it's just interesting, why is that? And sort of find someone you can process that with. So do some emotional reflection, and then take an opportunity for spiritual growth and renewal. These are so important. If we neglect the spiritual part of us, we miss an essential part of becoming a whole person. Thank you for listening today. That's all I have this afternoon for you, or whenever this airs, whenever you're looking at it. But thank you for your attention. I do hope that each of you who are watching is able to take something of value from this for your own journey as we make our way through this strange time of COVID-19 and the pandemic that has really, over the last weeks, turned our lives upside down. So thank you for giving your attention to this video. On behalf of the team here at Silver Bay and the New York Alliance of YMCAs, we wish you and your families, your co-workers, your communities, we wish you safety and health as we work together to get through this difficult time. Take care of yourselves, and God bless you all.